Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for Loki Episode 4, the Nexus event. And pretty much like everybody's been saying, I do think this is probably the best episode. First off, there is a mid-credit scene in case you ended up missing it. I think they learned probably from like WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier, like if we do a mid-credit scene or, post-credit scene or whatever, maybe we'll just shorten it up. I feel like they showed like three little slots of names and then it was like, boom, here's the scene. Because typically, especially like WandaVision for sure, I don't even remember if Falcon and Winter Soldier even had any. But WandaVision for sure, that very first time that they did like a post credit sequence, it was after like a full minute and a half of stuff. Like it went through like all the credits and everything. And technically they do that in this as well, but I felt like it was much longer. Maybe it was just because the credits seemed like way longer in WandaVision and maybe they are, I don't really know. But there's a post credit scene, so if you didn't see that, check that out, then come back and we'll talk about it at the end. But great episode. Starts off very simple. It's like, here's young Sylvie. I know that there was a mid-season trailer. I didn't watch that. I knew that she showed up because that's basically the thumbnail was like, young Sylvie. So I knew that that was going to be a thing. So I was like, okay, that was like the one thing I'd seen, and I'd seen like a small piece somewhere in there. I knew that we were going to see Asgard again, but it was very simple. Kicks right off is like, this is young Sylvie. Here we go with Asgard. She's just being a kid. She's just like, oh, well, just talking and stuff. I heard that she references, Valkyries and stuff like that. And so some people have mentioned they believe that that's probably what her Nexus event was. It wasn't that she just simply exists. It was that she was kind of leaning more towards being a Valkyrie, which even within the comics, even though we've only seen like one alive at this point, we know that they were heroic and they weren't villains. So if you have a character that, regardless of variations, is destined to be the villain that props up the other heroes, well, that villain who's destined to be a villain can't just like be like, well, I just want to be one of the heroes. Like, well, that doesn't work. So, no, we're gonna stop that, hit the bomb, wipe everything out. Excuse me. So I thought that was interesting, and it starts off where she's young. We find out that it's Renslayer. I finally remembered her name, or something close to that. She was the one that brought her in. Apparently, losing a variant that just is allowed to like destroy everything, like just goes off forever and becomes like one of the greatest threats ever to the TVA. No big deal, because I was like, how the f did she go from being the person that screwed up and lost a kid to being to being like the judge? So I think there's a legit answer in there somewhere. Because I'm like, well, she got a heck of a promotion from the person that couldn't hold on to a child. Because that's interesting to me. Like, based on how everything is like, just wipe this out, do this, do that. She came in, and that's like the biggest failure I've ever seen. Where it's just like, it was just a kid, and she couldn't hold on to this kid, and then she was just gone. And I was like, wow, that's a heck of an upgrade for someone that failed like that. But considering how the TVA operates, it's probably been like, hundreds of years for her. It's, maybe like 20 or so for Sylvie, but for them it could, it could be however many years, so centuries even. So, takes time to get over. But I was just like, well, that's an interesting failure for them to show off in the first episode, considering this is the character that's, like at the very top now. So I thought that was interesting. Then, of course, cuts to modern times. They're on the planet that's being destroyed. We have Mobius trying to figure out, like, all right, where are they at? Like, we lost them. We don't know what's going to happen. C20, who is the woman that Sylvie actually kind of got the info from, she ends up being killed. Like, apparently she went crazy, which we find out the truth about that later. So I was like, okay, that sucks. That's really sad. They of course end up capturing our two Loki variants, which came from a very interesting moment, which was they started to fall for each other. They started to fall for each other, and that is like the ultimate Nexus event. I don't know. I guess love makes your magic more powerful or something. 'Cause I'm like, realistically, the fact that there was like a Nexus event makes it seem as though them kissing or whatever could have possibly happened there, even as like that final wave was coming in. I thought that they were actually going to show something. I thought they were going to like, basically have that moment where they connect, and then something crazy was going to happen. Like in the last episode, we saw Loki do something we've never seen, where he sent like a building flying backwards, and I was like, there, some Captain Planet type stuff. Our powers combined, and then they were going to like stop this whole chaos, and I was like, huh. So something was there, because clearly it's more than like, oh, these variants of one being were like gonna bang each other. It's like they were still gonna die. So the fact that there was a Nexus event while they were literally like a minute away from them dying, maybe not the rest of the planet, but specifically those two characters were about to die in that exact moment, like in less than a minute, and yet the variation was so high off the charts. I was like, that's a big deal. So they're gonna have to answer that in the next one of the next two episodes. But I was like, it's way beyond a variant, falling in love with himself pretty much. I was like, there's something extra. I don't know if they have to like kiss or something, something weird. But I was like, clearly, if they were able to literally change a rule that was established 2 episodes ago, like you can literally not find any variation because it's all gonna die off into like everything's gonna be destroyed. So it doesn't matter what you do. Yet somehow, less than a minute from them dying, they had a spike that basically went straight. It wasn't like a slime. It was just like whoop, like straight up like Loki's boner, I guess. I don't know, but I thought that was really interesting. And then of course they come in, they arrest them, they split them apart. We get a really great callback to Lady Sif. That was amazing. So that's another reason it's like the best episode, because I never thought Jamie Alexander would play Sif again, because for one, she got her own show, which is why she wasn't in any of the other Thor movies, because she was in Blind Spot, which was a great show. So I was like, that was amazing. I never thought she would come back. So that was super cool to see her come back. And then of course, unfortunately she doesn't get to have like a lot of moments because it's just a time loop moment. But I thought that was great. I was like, that's a super cool reference. Loki's of course dropping little seeds. He does the classic television thing where it's like, I could have just said everything I needed to tell you, but instead I'm just going to say the TVA's lying to you. That's so vague, it was pointless to even say. But he did it. And so they go, they go through the process. And I like the way it happened, and it was like, all right, he knows what Sylvie knows. And then we find out that, I think it's Hunter B13, if I'm not mistaken, she actually remembers stuff from her past. So she's like freaking out and stuff, and it's like, I'm remembering things. So she, of course, goes to Sylvie, and she finds out the truth, and it's like, dang. And I was like, well, that's super cool. They don't kill her at the end either. I thought they were definitely going to kill her off, especially with the way the episode was going. I was just like, I don't know what's going to happen here. So things just get crazier and crazier, and I like the way it was all handled. We got to see the lizard people, like it was just interesting. They're just robots. And I was just like, all right, that's cool. They could have like toned down the crazy warp on their voices, especially I think it was like the third person, like the blue guy on the right side, I think, hardest one to hear. Like the green one, mostly normal. The red one to the left was like, all right, it was a little difficult, but I could tell. And then the one on the right, I was like, I had to like process what I heard in the echoes as he was going through like the second half of what he was trying to tell them. Like, okay, that's what he just said, and then I'm trying to listen as I'm trying to figure out what he said in the beginning, because there was way too much echo on that last one that was talking. I was like, that was the worst one for sure. But I like the way that was handled. They have a cool fight scene. It was okay for them to have been fighting like 4 people. I was like, this doesn't look as cool as I admittedly thought it was gonna end up looking. So I was kind of like meh on the actual choreography of it. It just didn't feel super impactful, considering it was 2 characters who seem to have really great skills as far as fighting. Like the last episode, I thought the action was a lot better compared to this one, and they were in a not necessarily a smaller space, but the way it was handled was like they didn't have room to really run around and utilize a lot of things, so they kind of had to focus on either the hand-to-hand combat or the weapons. And I was just like, they didn't really do like the greatest job during that fight. That was the only one where I really personally noticed. I was like, I don't really like this fight. Like I've heard people reference that from some of the other episodes, but this is the one where I was just like, I don't know. Something about it it felt kind of slow for it to be a fight where it's like she's fighting 2 people, he's fighting 2 people. They even had Hunter B13. She came in. I mean, she got knocked out super fast, but she was fighting 2 people, and it was just like, you got like 6 characters, 6 villain characters. There's like so many ideas and concepts for that, and everything just felt so plain and simple during that whole fight sequence, and I was just like, okay. But of course they win. Sylvie's just like boom, decapitation. It was great. And then they find out, of course, it's a robot, so they don't know what the F is happening. And then we have what I call a classic death scene. So Owen Wilson dies. I know I skipped over that, but that was a good scene as well. He took the jump pad, I always call him that, but he stole that. He went to Loki, he realized the truth and everything, and so he was going to team up with him. And then, of course, they got busted. He tried to make his way out of it, and then he's like, all right, F it. I know I'm busted, so here's what's going to happen. I thought she would at least make an attempt. Like, I don't know what the point was. Clearly, someone does control what's going on with the TVA. So even though those were, like, 3, like, giant robots, somebody's watching from the other side, clearly, because otherwise it's just like, well, why would Renslayer go through, like, this whole spiel? It's like, she straight up murdered Owen Wilson, just like prune him, and then he just died in a second. I was like, oh, well, I didn't see that one coming. But then it's like, all right, we're gonna do a whole spiel and a show, and we're gonna gather our 2 Lokis and take them up the golden elevator. And I was like, obviously she's not the one like truly in charge. Even if those were robots, somebody is watching and they want to get some answers and kind of put on a show for themselves. So I was like, all right, clearly something's going on here. But they go through the whole fight scene. They kill Owen Wilson off. They don't kill off Hunter B13, so I assume we'll see her in the next episode. And then they have their moment. They beat all the villains. And like I said, this is what I call a classic death scene because they're talking, and it's always the same way. It's like the worst position any main character could ever be in any series after a fight. So they don't murder every single person in the room. Not everybody got disintegrated. I think they only stabbed like 2 of the guards. Honestly, I feel like they only actually killed 2 of the people in that whole room. During like that whole fight sequence, I feel like they killed like 2 people and knocked out 5. So I'm just like, okay, they're talking and he's trying to have his emotional moment to say that, he has feelings for her. And so I'm like, something's gonna happen. Like, I don't like where he's positioned because it's the classic death position, which is you have our 2 characters after the big fight. They're like real up close. So every shot is like a mid to like a close up shot and everything's blurry in the background. So like you have this whole field of story going on where you're like, I can't see anybody's feet. I don't know who's grabbing what, who's getting up, who's rubbing their head. I don't know what's happening because all I can see is like this part of the people. And that's when somebody's going to die. And so I was just waiting and I'm like, I think this is going to happen. And of course he tries to say it and he just starts opening up and I was like, I knew it. I freaking knew it. And then it made sense why we had the last episode because I was like, oh, they were passing the torch. And it was like, you kind of need to get more of a feel for her because he's out and she's in, which I thought was a really great twist. I was like, you killed Owen Wilson. You killed off Loki. I know Morbius, but it's Owen Wilson. So they killed both of them off and I was like, oh. Then it leads to Sylvie and Hunter B13, her still being alive. Those could be the 2 characters that took over. And so then it ends, and she's like, you're going to tell me everything because she doesn't want to kill Renslayer because we all want answers, and so does she. So we're going to get that next week. I hope we get everything that we need, and then the last episode is just like the crazy fight thing, I guess. I don't know. But we go through. It's like, this is crazy. I guess Loki's just gone. Like, there's not going to be a transition into future movies, any of that crap. Like, he's gone. And then it's like, here he is. He wakes up, and I'm like, okay. So does everyone that gets pruned go to this other dimension? Does he go to Valhalla because technically speaking that's what they do with Asgard? Like that's a thing where they die and they go to Asgard, or they go to hell. It just depends really. So it was really interesting. I was like, there's so many ways that could have gone simply due to the fact that he's Asgardian. I was like, this could actually tie into like his religion with Asgard and stuff. It could just be like a new thing or whatever. And it's like, is this hell? And it's like, no. But we do need to go. And then we get like 4 Lokis. And that was amazing. Somebody's going to make a joke about that with like 4 Loki and 4 Lokis. But it was great. I loved it. From right to left, we have super classic Loki. And they actually have an older guy playing him. So it's like as if Loki was actually in the comics. He'd just be older now. So super classic Loki. Had, it was vibrant colors, the horns that swoop down and everything. It was really good. Then we have Kid Loki, Young Avengers. I don't know if they're doing it, but they keep introducing these Young Avengers. And then they have Alligator Loki, which is not from the comics. We do have Frog Thor, and I believe, we have Spider-Ham. I'm sure everyone knows about that. So there is a world where that's a thing, but I don't think they've done Alligator Loki. So that's cool, and I'm sure they'll find a way to throw that into the comics. But, classic Loki, Kid Loki, Alligator Loki, and then we have, he had, a wrench on his hammer. So it seemed like he had an alternate version of Mjolnir maybe or something like that because none of them really had weapons except for him. So I was like, I'm wondering if that's his universe's version of Mjolnir and he ended up getting it, but he just imbued the magic into something else. And so because it was a giant wrench for sure, or it was just a weird handle, but I'm pretty sure it was a giant wrench and he almost kind of built his own Mjolnir. So I was like, this is really interesting. And of course, everything behind them looks really destroyed and messed up. So I don't know what that means or where they are in the timeline or the multiverse or whatever. But we got 2 more episodes to go. Sylvie's going to get us all our answers. I'm assuming that she's going to be staying in that very specific room for quite some time because, it's her and Hunter B13. It's like the 2 of them can't exactly take out everybody. So they'll probably just leave from that room after they get the answers. And then we have Loki and then the other 4 Lokis, and they're just doing something. Who the F knows? We'll find out next week. But an amazing, probably my favorite mid-credit sequence out of any of the shows. It was just oh, okay. We're getting classic comic costume, Kid Loki, like I said, Alligator Loki, and then possible Mjolnir wielding Loki. So I don't know what they're going to do with it, but it looked great. It was a great way to end it, and I was just like, didn't see that one coming. So and now we got a bunch of Lokis walking around, and we'll see what that does going into the next episode. But I'm very excited. I would love to figure out what's going on. I do think Renslayer also knows what the Nexus event was for Sylvie, and like I said, they, from other reviews I've heard people reference like it could be the Valkyrie thing. Her, wanted to basically be good in that timeline. It was like, well, we can't have that. That's not your destiny. So I thought that was interesting. She was like, oh, I don't even know, but she remembered her, and like that's the interesting. It was like, you're not gonna forget the girl that got away, for one, and then this same girl that got away, which is like your greatest failure ever, is once again the sole thing that has ever threatened the TVA, and just like, I don't even know. She knows exactly what it is. So I feel like we're gonna end up getting a very specific reason as to why they wiped out her world. Like, she said she didn't know, but the first thing she did was like, do you remember me? And she was like, yeah, but she doesn't remember why. It was like, I don't think that's true. So we'll see. There's some other reveal going into the next episode, or maybe even in the finale. But either way, great episode, great post-credit sequence. Both endings were fantastic, because I was like, wow, they killed them both off, and Sylvie is the new Loki taking over. And then mid-credit sequence, gotcha again, Loki is still here. Like, man, he really does die all the time. He even said it was like, I die all the time, so do your worst. I'm like, wow, he just won't die. He just don't quit. He's like a cockroach, but cooler. So it is what it is, and I'm very excited for these next 2 episodes. But of course, we'll love to know what you guys thought about it, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, least favorite parts about it. And of course, going into the final 2, I would love to know your predictions. I think the biggest thing really is the little Loki gang that we're supposed to be getting in this next episode. What are your thoughts on that? Like, what is that going to lead to? Where are they at? What are they going to do to, save this version of Loki? Why did these Lokis end up teaming up? Like, there are a lot of questions from just seeing multiple Lokis together, because it's just like, okay, why'd you guys do that? Why are you saving me? How did I get here? Was it that they used magic to stop him from actually dying after he, died? Like, there's so many things that they could use as an explanation that actually work because magic is involved. And then it's just like, what's the end game on that? So 2 more episodes to go. Like I said, we'd love to know your thoughts on everything going forward. But of course, we'd love to know your thoughts on this episode, so please put them down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.